Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Triangulation is brought to you by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com. This is Triangulation. Tom Merritt and Leo Laporte. Recorded October 26th, 2011. Dana Brunetti. Triangulation is brought to you by Ford, featuring Wi-Fi connectivity with available sync and My Ford Touch. Now your car could be a Wi-Fi hotspot. Check it out in the new 2012 Ford Focus and at ford.com/technology. It's time for Triangulation, the show where Tom Merritt and I get together and talk to some of the best minds, most interesting people in the business. We're kind of rearranged here because I'm so excited. It's all confusing because we have somebody in studio with us, which we rarely get. Dana Brunetti is here, and I think anybody who watches our shows probably knows Dana's name. If you haven't seen Dana, he's been on Inside the Net and the Social Hour in the past with us. We talked to you on Oscar Eve. You were in your tuxedo, ready to go.
I actually went back and watched it the other day because it was cool for me to kind of relive that because I was nervous and crazy that it was like a way to see what I wasn't really. My head was in a different space. So
Dana's a producer with TriggerStreet.com. Yeah, I think you kind of run Trigger Street for Kevin Spacey's production company. And you've done some really interesting things. In fact, you were on the Screensavers, or Kevin was, I guess. You were with him.
I was as well.
Talking about Trigger Street, because at that time you were collecting scripts and people would review them, and some of them might make it onto the screen.
That was the green light thing. I remember that.
No, that was different. We launched
project,
shortly after them, and we created more of a social network. It was in 2002 when we launched, and it was for aspiring filmmakers and screenwriters to have a platform to post their content to get both exposure and to get feedback to help improve.
Great idea.
And
is it still around?
Still going strong.
Have any of those movies been made?
Quite a few have been optioned by other production companies. We established it more as a way, not for us as a production company to get material, because we were just inundated with it as it is coming through the normal channels, but to have it more people either wanting to be in business or producers looking for new material or new talent to basically have a place to kind of go and find material. So a lot of people have gotten their scripts optioned. A lot of directors and writers have gotten jobs both from the site and also just learning the craft and perfecting their work by being on it and then getting it through other channels.
It's like a Flickr, as Flickr is to photography, Trigger Street is to screenwriting. You need somewhere to put it and have people give you feedback on it. You need those critiques.
And it's a great way to share it out too. A lot of people, if they're trying to get it out, both to have a place for it to live, so if they're tweeting it out, put it on Facebook or sending out links, just send that link and then they go, and then they can see all the reviews that were done on it and all the information on it before they download it.
A lot of people are trying to reverse engineer what you did now by saying, oh, social networking's big, I need to create this. You were ahead of the game.
Way ahead of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because we laugh that we created one of the first social networks, but not intentionally creating one of the first social networks, but it was all community-based and peer-to-peer, and it's still, I mean, it's a proof that a social network works because we created it to run itself, it polices itself, and it's almost 10 years later still going strong.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
Pud taught me that, the guy who did fcompany.com. He says, I start sites, but I don't want to run them. I make sure that the content gets created by its users, and it just self-generates.
And we let the community self-police, too. So if they're violating guidelines, be it they have copyrighted music or the page length or the format of a script is incorrect or it doesn't download, we have what's called the Hall of Justice, and it's a community, it's a very democratic system where if you find something that's on the site, it's a short film it won't play or has Green Day music in or something, you can submit it and report it. And it takes the work off of us, but also removes us from being the man.
You don't have to be the cop.
So we don't have to wear the cop outfit.
Badge. It's Halloween. I'm getting ready. There's never been more traffic in the chat room about why the hell is I moonlight as a mall cop, and you see I took a bullet earlier.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Right. That's movie magic,
There was
Dana.
robbers running down the street. I saw as I was walking.
So what was your first film producer credit?
Well, I did a small documentary called Uncle Frank that HBO ended up picking up, and it kind of came to us after it was halfway shot. And it was about a guy who went around to nursing homes in upstate New York entertaining residents. And he was older than most residents in nursing homes, and he lugged this little electronic organ around. And it was this cute little documentary that was really heartfelt. And they needed help. The filmmakers at the time needed help to kind of finish it and take it the next step. So I got involved with that to help push that through, and then HBO picked that up. I then ended up doing another documentary for PBS called America Rebuilds. Is a year at Ground Zero. We had cameras through that whole process. And then I got the rights to Bringing Down the House, which became 21.
What a great movie. That was such a good movie. Loved the book, too, by the way.
The book was great, yeah. The story was just amazing.
And, of course, the guy who wrote that also wrote The Social Network.
Well, he wrote Accidental Billionaires that Aaron Sorkin based The Social Network on, which was a weird scenario of how that went, because Bringing Down the House, it took 6 years to get that made. Social Network, from inception to when Ben told me the story about what he thought the next book was going to be, because we work pretty close to, when he's thinking about a book, he'll usually say, hey, I'm going to write a book about this or that, and I'm like, oh, that's great, I can take it here, I know who to take it to and sell it to and buy it to. So when 21 came out, we were pretty hot, and I'm like, what else do you have? Because I sold everything you had. I'm like, what else do you have? I can sell anything. What's your next book? And he goes, I think it's going to be about to start a Facebook. No, I didn't know.
You didn't?
No, I was like,
was it too early?
No one wants to see a movie about Facebook.
Yeah.
Like, how do you do that?
There's certainly challenges in how to do it. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. And that credit all goes to Aaron. But Ben, so he's like, no, wait until you hear the story. And he started telling me, what we all know
about the
now.
Winklevosses and all that.
And how all the, the drama that was there. And I was like, oh, well, this is brilliant. And so we started down that path, and then when we got it set, it was just a treatment. So the book hadn't been written, and I sold that to Sony. And then Aaron Sorkin got wind of that, and then chased after it, and was like, Aaron Sorkin, okay,
you're
great.
Gold now.
So they started writing simultaneously and sharing research.
Are you kidding? While he was writing the book?
Yeah. Oh, wow, that's interesting.
So it was a really unique experience. And so Aaron was writing a screenplay off of Ben's notes, and it's while Ben was sending pages. And so we had a screenplay like almost the same time we had the first manuscript, which normally never happens. Usually it's you have the book, and then like the Steve Jobs book, and then you send it out to writers, and then they start working on drafts of it.
Yeah. You didn't get the option on the Steve Jobs book.
I didn't.
Damn.
It's at Sony though.
It's a hot book.
If everybody writes into Sony, maybe they
who do you
me
get to
it.
play Steve Jobs? Tom Hanks, of course, obvious.
Ashton.
No.
I hear
He's
Ashton,
way too nice.
I hear Ashton could.
Ashton would be perfect, because Ashton's just
That's
got
why
a little
you
of
guys
that
never make
edge.
it in Hollywood.
Yeah.
No,
or actually,
really?
maybe you'll do.
No, that's good. Now tell us, what did we do wrong there? Why would we? Why is that?
Well, it depends on what year, where you're going to start, and how you're
how
going
young
to
he has
age
to
him
be.
up. Yeah, I mean, there's some. I know that early photo of him with the apple in the back. A lot of people
looks
say
a
it
lot
looks
like Ashton
in that.
But how do you get Ashton to look like the later Steve Jobs?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or do you get somebody else? But and it's also where do you start in that? Do you tell the entire?
You can't.
Thing,
600 pages.
Yeah.
So this is great. So let's go. Let's take a little step back. What the hell does a producer do? I think you were just doing some of it.
Yeah.
And I guess there's different kinds of producers too.
Yeah, and it's hard to describe, because you could be considered a producer or actually be producing in a different variety of roles and still be an effective producer. Generally, in vague terms, it's and how I work is I try to find material that I can either attach talent first of stories that I'm passionate about or I think would make good stories for film or television, and that would be attractive enough and commercial enough for a studio to buy or for a financier to finance. And then that's kind of a chicken and egg scenario then, because then it has to be good enough to attract the talent.
So it's really packaging.
A lot of it is. That's just to get it going, to get it set up and to get it moving. And then once you have it set up and going forward, it's then about getting the director, getting the writer, getting somebody like Aaron Sorkin to do the adaptation, getting life rights, and then it starts to get into the machine, and then it starts to kind of take its own course.
So it's really a lot of facilitating. It sounds like. Yeah.
And then you're going through different drafts of the script and working with the director if you have one, and working with the writer, working with the casting director to help facilitate the director's vision and who he wants in different roles, working with the production designer and locations, working the budgets to make sure that that's going to work within where you go, and working with the line producer to do that. So it's really you become more like a general, putting different department heads in place, and as long as they're doing their jobs and you've put the right people in the right places and they're doing their jobs, you can kind of step back and then watch the magic start to happen until it ends up going into the edit. And then then you have your editor working with the director, step in.
You have to go from the beginning to the very end to the movie coming out.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's usually a very long process, and it's a very difficult.
Well, you said what was it? 3 years for 21? 6 years.
6 years for 21.
Wow.
What was amazing about Social Network is from inception, from Ben telling me that to actual screen was only just over 2 years, which is unheard of.
Well, probably because you got the script written at the same time as the book.
Yeah.
I imagine that saved you a lot of time.
But I also pulled a little trick with Sony that I'm like, look, we really got them, because studios tend to overdevelop and really like.
They mess with it too much.
Yeah, and that's just the nature of the beast, and it's a lot of decisions.
It's a collaborative art, which makes it very difficult. You know, you look at a Steve Jobs and what he succeeded because he was a dictator. He said it goes this way.
Well, that worked to our advantage too, because we had names like we had first with Aaron Sorkin, and then Scott Rudin, who is one of the biggest producers. He came in as well with me and Mike DeLuca, and then we got David Fincher.
Right. And
then that's when it was like, okay, we're moving forward, and we're.
You also have to get his Fincher's schedule. He's got other movies he's working on, right?
Well, typically they carve out a period of time.
They say this is the
directors
time.
won't normally go from back to back to back because they have to spend for the movie.
Prep.
It's a good year and a half, 2 years that they have to spend with it. But from pre-production to or development, pre-production, production, post, and then the release of the film. A lot of times after that they'll then go into another film, but it's usually. A good director does like one, maybe every couple of years.
I can't think of any other business or art form where so much energy is put in, so many years are put in, and then it's 2 hours. You go in and it's done. I mean, if you took, a meal, you take all day to make a meal, it's over in 2 hours. That seems like a long time. You take 6 years to make a 2-hour meal.
Yeah, that's why I keep a smaller slate than most producers because I like to focus on things that I don't just try to throw everything against the wall, see what sticks. I try to be things I'm passionate about or that I have a genuine interest in. But you still have to keep quite a few, and we have a board that's like there's a list of them, and it's all about moving them forward. And I know that the large majority of those will never come to fruition. They will never get anywhere.
That's got to be frustrating too, especially if it's something you really care about.
Yeah, there's still a lot that are still on that. They fall down further on the board rather than just fall off. But it's just
and that's why people hear about such and such movie is going to be made, and then it never gets made. Right?
Oh yeah. As my business is all about announcements. Like I get and I kind of hate announcements sometimes because then people are like, well, when's that going to come out? When's that going to come out? Because there's something that they may be very passionate about, be it a book or comic book or story, and it's just it's just trying to get it through the machine. And we kind of joke whenever we actually get one through and it makes it to screen as we slip one through and no one was looking. It's like, they were paying attention over there. It's like, watch over here.
How'd you convince Sony not to slow this process down?
Oh, so it helps have David Fincher where he's just like, this is what we're doing, and he's very strict in that way. But one thing that he did, when Aaron delivered the script, usual scripts are like 120 pages because that 2 hour, they want it in a 2 hour package, and a lot of reasons they want to do that.
Page a minute.
Yeah, typically, but they also it's for the theater runtime, so they can have more showings. And then just
can't be more than 2 hours for sure.
Well, some movies are, but they typically like to have them.
They don't like it.
Yeah. And it's also for.
It's got to be Harry Potter if you're going to do that.
Yeah. Or
Waterworld.
Yeah.
Again.
Therein lies the problem. Yeah.
But so the first draft of the script we got was like 163 pages, and it was phenomenal. I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
So first
cut 40 pages.
That's what everyone thinks, and the studio's like, well, what are we going to cut out? What are we going to do? And Aaron, to his credit, was like, don't touch it. Let me try something. And he goes with Sorkin and sits down, and he pulls out his stopwatch on his iPhone and says, start reading. And started timing it. And Aaron talks very fast.
That's the thing. He's writing this bing, 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 bing.
And it's like like we're having right now. Like we probably did 40 pages already right here. And so he times it all out and realizes I can get that same tempo and that momentum. I'll be able to do this. So he convinced the studio, don't touch it. The only thing we did, there was one scene when Sean Parker is in the house and he's saying, we lived on farms and we lived in community, and then we're going to live online. The scene when the girl lays down and the guy is doing the drugs. Aaron Sorkin, it was going to be topless. So obviously we want to be PG-13.
Right.
We changed that, and we changed a few other things here and there, both for tightening it up a little bit, but nothing major like you would think, like scenes or not. Everything pretty much in that first script that I got ended up on the screen, and that was credit to...
That's pretty unusual.
Yeah, very unusual.
I somehow got the script. I don't know how I got it before you shot it, and it
was leaked online.
Was it leaked?
Yeah,
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
And it was it's pretty close to it, right? I mean,
oh yeah. If you get it now,
you could read it.
Go and download it now and read it, and then watch the movie, and you'll see it's pretty close to the original. And that's very seldom. Like, you go and download early drafts of other movies that you might be favorites of. I think 21, for example, we went through like 60 drafts or something.
And sometimes even while you're shooting, I would imagine.
Oh, we were rewriting that all the way through, because we did a rewrite after the first reading of it, which was the day before we started shooting.
Oh God,
I was pulling hair out. That was nerve-wracking.
Still a great movie if you haven't seen it. Well worth seeing. It's all about the MIT club that beat the casinos.
Yeah, that's a fantastic
it's a true story.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's a true story. Much like the Social Network, which is essentially a true story.
We took a lot more liberties though with 21 than we did with
you had to.
Social Network.
Yeah. Well, how does that work for people who don't understand? They're like, well, wait a minute. The truth of the biography is here. You based it on the book. Why did you change the girlfriend? Why did you change this and that?
Well, we took a lot of criticism, particularly from the tech community, and Leo was.
You got the Pearl
script
right.
By the way, you love
that
stuff.
Was amazing.
Well, that's when I was a stickler for that. I remember being on the set, and there was when he's in the room and a girl hands him the note and says, "You're an asshole." I forgot what the professor was talking about, but he turns around and repeats the answer. But the actor that was playing that was reading it wrong, and I was like, "That's not right." And it wasn't even something I knew. I just knew it wasn't right. And they were like, we got to move on. Let's continue on." And they started tearing down the set, and I'm like, I really don't think. And I didn't want to tell David Fincher how to do his job.
Sure, yeah.
I'm like, I don't think that's right. And so we got the technical advisor. Finally got him on the phone, and he goes, "Yeah, no, that's not right." And then they're like, we got to redo it.
That's
so they had to
great.
put up the lights, put everything back up, which is a big setup to redo it. But to his credit, he put it all back together.
I
to get
saw
that.
it in a screening with the Mashable. It was a Mashable screen, so it was all geeks. And when they mentioned Pearl, the audience went, "Yay!"
Yeah. Same where
they went crazy about it. And my only criticism, actually enjoyed the movie, my only criticism, and this is what's going to happen with any movie that's about a niche, the people in the niche go, "Oh, wow, we nitpick." We nitpick. And it was things like the girlfriend. And of course, we all know Mark Zuckerberg has had the same girlfriend since before Facebook, and it's really a central point of the movie that he wants this girl back, and he's refreshing and refreshing and refreshing.
But we took that from chat logs,
right?
Or from
all of what he's saying in the blog is literally what he said in the blog.
That's his words.
Mm-hmm. So there's maybe more to this story than we know. We shall not say anything more. Well, and
clearly, whoever she was, she made him angry enough.
Yeah.
Or inspired him enough, however which way you want to look at it.
Well, and it turns out it's a great story, as nerdy as it is. It really is a great story.
He's come around as well. I mean,
you know what? It was the best thing that ever happened to Mark Zuckerberg.
I agree.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think that we made him Man of the Year. I told you that before we went to the Oscars. Without all that attention from the movie, I personally I don't think he would have been Man of the Year.
And I think he finally realized that.
It's forced him into the spotlight. He's become a better public speaker. He's probably,
have you ever spoken to him?
Yeah.
Now, I ran into him at a party. I was one of the original investors in iLike, which was the
I remember
#1 Facebook app on for a while before Mark just kind of incorporated into.
We'll do that. Thanks.
So it got
Go
sold
away.
to MySpace.
These things happen.
So I just briefly, we didn't really talk. Actually, I spoke to them today. I was going to stop by, but apparently he's too busy to meet, which is understandable and cool. I've gotten to know his sister,
Randy.
Had conversations. We actually had dinner last time I was up in with a group of people. The last time I was up here, but
They should be grateful to you. Anytime a major motion picture is made about you, I don't care if it's
and frankly, I said
negative.
before, I think Fincher did a fantastic job, and Ben and Aaron with the story where, like, I've gotten to know the Winklevolls really well, and I knew Eduardo. Eduardo was my way into the story originally, and so I know all of these guys now to an extent. Mark, I didn't really know. But I like Mark the best in that movie, and the reason that I liked him the best in that movie was you may not agree with how he went about things, either in real life or within the film, but you have to respect the fact that if he didn't do what he did and how he did it, Facebook would not be what it is today. And so he had the power and the willingness to do what he needed to do to make it happen and see his vision through. If it would have stayed with the Winklevolls or Eduardo would have stayed involved, who knows what would have been. Maybe it would have been bigger.
No.
I don't know. You can say that.
I'll say that.
Or, you know, maybe it would have failed. Maybe it would have went the way of MySpace.
Because the Winkelweis are making pistachio nut ads, and they're happy, right?
Well, I don't know if they're happy, but they're doing all right.
We're talking with Dana Brunetti, who is a producer at TriggerStreet.com, produced The Social Hour.
No, I didn't.
That's my show. Produced The Social Network.
I did that earlier, too.
I've been doing it all day. Produced The Social
I
Network.
caught it from you, that's why.
And nominated for an Oscar. We talked to you as you were off to the Oscar ceremony. That must have been exciting. That must have been really fun.
Yeah. That was, I mean, I'm pretty young for a producer, and so to get nominated was like,
oh, it's huge.
It was kind of weird. It's like, if I win, what the hell do I do now?
Right.
And
so it's good you didn't win.
Yeah.
So
no,
congratulations.
No, I had money on you for sure.
Oh, for real?
I thought for sure that was a.
I knew it wasn't, and it's weird because it's almost.
I don't even remember who won.
Thank you.
I don't. I swear to God,
Thank
that's
you.
what happens.
You want me to tell you or no?
Yeah, no, that's all right. I don't want to know. Social Network should have won.
Chairman will tell you.
Should have won. No,
The King's Speech.
Yeah.
But it was weird because it was like a campaign for for office almost.
Right. They buy ads in Variety.
They buy ads
for
you
your
have to go
consideration.
Out and meet people and press the flesh, and you know you come to places like San Francisco where there's Oscar voters, and you do Q&As.
Well, it's funny because I worked on KFI radio for years. I still am on KFI, which is the LA station, and they always have all these ads, which I'd never heard in my life, saying, "Think about this. This is a great movie."
And the reason for that is there's a lot of older voters that listen to KFI,
right?
And that's the biggest contingent, and that's why I think that we lost them.
Yes,
because the younger demographic. I went to I had a meeting with Alex Trebek, not a meeting, it was an event, and Alex Trebek was there, and he didn't know I produced The Social Network, and I was like, it's Alex Trebek, Jeopardy. And he's like, within 10 minutes, I hated that movie.
Oh, jeez.
It's like, oh, great.
What's this computer stuff anyway?
What exactly did you hate of it?
So I was just like, we're dead here.
Well, you always see that when you see who wins the awards. It's obviously an older vote. You know, you don't. Star Wars is never going to win an Oscar. It's always going to be the older.
It was a shocker when Lord of the Rings.
It was a shocker.
Yeah. We did all right with Aaron won, and Trent Reznor and Atticus, they won. Our editors won. We ended up taking home like 5 or 6.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
Trent did great music on that.
Yeah,
actually, I had him in my Oscar poll as well for the music.
That was one of the coolest experiences because, you know, when I was a kid in high school and 9 Inch Nails.
You were a
like
9 Inch Nails fan.
Trent Reznor, and now I'm like hanging out with Trent Reznor all the time on the award circuit. And he's the coolest guy, and it's like that's where it's like, you know, I get jaded in this business, but there's moments like that where it's like, this is just so awesome that Trent Reznor's like hanging out with me. He's like one of my childhood idols, but super cool.
Our show brought to you today by Ford. We'll take a break, and we're going to come back. I want to ask you what you're working on in the future. Dana Brunetti is here. We're finding out about the ins and outs of Hollywood. You know, you do this show all about Hollywood.
Yeah.
You might have some, you know, like get some insights, like for your, you know, they have a.
We do a winter movie draft.
They have a movie draft.
I thought you were going to the Ford commercial, so I didn't.
But you could get some insight.
We do a show called Frame Rate. It's for cord cutters.
Okay, cool.
Essentially. So we do a movie draft that people can play along with us.
You should have been here yesterday.
It's too late now because
he already bought the crap movies.
Yeah, we just did it yesterday. We did
not today.
We'll do it again in the summer
via Skype or something.
Oh yeah, we do it every week.
Oh, he could be like your tipster. He could be like your inside guy, you know?
Yeah.
Done.
All right. Excellent. Yeah, thanks.
What's going to be the big grocer?
See, this is how deals get done.
Yeah, that's right.
He's a packager. Show brought to you today by Ford. I got to tell you, I love my Mustang. There I am. Ford is an amazing car company.
I drove a Mustang here today.
It's great, isn't it? Did you like it? Do you have the 2012 or the 2011?
It's a rental, so I'm assuming it's
Yeah. The new ones, boy, I have a 2010 5.0, really nice V8. But those engines. Ford is really into technology. The CEO is, as you probably know, former Boeing engineer, designed the 777 cockpit. So he's really into technology, and I think that they're starting to think of their cars as like 777 cockpits. You know, I mean, this thing is wired. If you go to Ford.com/technology, you can see some of the technologies they're using for the engines. The Ford Sync, which I've talked to. If you like Siri, you'll love Ford Sync. You can talk to your car. You say, set the temperature for 73 degrees. Where's the nearest gas station? Find me a restaurant. What's the traffic like? Play a song. I mean, it's amazing. And they've had this for years. And then now the My Ford Touch, and you get this great big screen, and they've actually got it so that you can Wi-Fi your car. So they have 2 USB ports, which first of all I love because I hook up the iPod to one, and it charges it while you're listening. But then the other one, you put the 3G dongle in there, and the car has antennas in it, and it's now a a rolling Wi-Fi access
it's
spot.
not an extra service contract either. If
No,
you've got the USB, you
exactly.
just plug it in.
Just plug it in. The hybrids, I'm waiting for the 2012 electric, the Focus electric, but the 2012 Focuses have this Wi-Fi thing. I cannot wait to get the electric. Take a look. Ford, yeah, that's going to be awesome. And they got the app. You can start the car with your app. I mean, you could say, everything. You know, everything that's going on. You look at your app. In fact, they use apps in the My Ford Touch. You have Pandora, Stitcher. They realize that the phones are moving faster than the cars can. So they hook up to the phones. They have app support, and that way they can do all of this. It's just incredible. I want you to take a look. Ford.com/technology, or better yet, go to your nearest Ford dealer and test drive a 2012 Ford Focus, or one of their great vehicles. Did I see it? Tim Wester. Our picnic is coming up, our barbecue. I think the 13th of November, we're going to have a Ford barbecue with all the cars.
Free barbecue.
Yeah, barbecue. You help us figure out what to barbecue.
Yeah, all right. Yeah.
So what's going to be the big movie of the Christmas season? Let's see if Tom got the wrong
one. Well, I'll tell you what movies I got in the draft. I got Twilight, Alvin and the Chipmunks,
Alvin and the Chipmunks, and Tintin.
And Tintin.
Tintin, I'm going to be very curious to see that. I think it could be a big surprise.
Well, it doesn't have Christmas, so
but it doesn't have a big American following. You know, I mean, it's a French comic book, right?
But it's the people behind it are
they good? The best?
Isn't Spielberg?
Is it Spielberg?
Yeah, it's a Spielberg thing.
Making me doubt myself for a second.
No, I don't know. See, I know nothing. I live up here in the cow country. What did Sarah get, though?
She got the Rum Diary, Hugo, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, Mission Impossible, Ghost Protocol.
Mission Impossible is going to be big because of Jeremy Renner and Tom Cruise. And Jeremy, I think, is going to end up taking over that franchise. And The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, simply because that book is so big, is David Fincher again. Fincher Reznor did the score.
He's perfect for that movie because it's dark.
Yeah,
so I got Twilight and 2 kids movies.
Well, you're going with the easy.
She went broad on the base.
Well, wait, so what are you saying?
It's box office, domestic gross.
Box office. Yeah, that's tough. Alvin and Chipmunks and Twilight are good. Those are good.
You did good. You did good. Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Not my kind of movies. But
no, you don't buy on quality.
Not going on quality,
exactly.
for sure.
So what are you working on?
Starting in the new year, hopefully knock on wood or leather here. I have the story about Captain Phillips, who was the captain of the Maersk, Alabama, who was taken hostage by the Somali pirates that the Navy SEALs came in and rescued.
SEAL Team 6.
Some of the SEAL Team 6. Some of the same guys that were on the Bin Laden raid were on that mission as well. Tom Hanks is playing the captain.
Oh, that's good.
And Paul Greengrass is directing. Script written by Billy Ray.
Now that got to be a tough shoot because it's ocean, right?
Oh yeah.
Do you do it in a boat? Do you do it in a tank? What do you do?
We're going to do. It's going to be a combination. So we're probably going to shoot in New Orleans, and the Navy is going to provide us with some destroyers, but we obviously got to work around their schedule and we got to get ships from Maersk and other places.
This is where you earn your keep.
Yeah, well, the line producer more so than me, but
they're the ones that line up all this stuff, the locations.
They're the general on the ground. They're the guys there, like seeing a day-to-day operation of how, everything that we're kind of starting to get in place and kind of sending their way.
I can see why the Navy would cooperate, but why would Maersk? You'd think they'd want to.
They're the shipping line
that
this captain worked for.
Yeah,
no, but I mean, they didn't do anything wrong, and
they don't feel like that's a bad.
It happens, and it's a good thing for. This happens all the time, and I think
pirates, Somali pirates.
Yeah.
There's tons and tons of right now that are taken captive. This is the first time that an American ship was taken captive, so it got all the attention that it got. So I think it's a good way for them to bring attention to that issue.
Okay.
I'm assuming.
Yeah.
But no, they're definitely.
As long as the captain's a hero, I think why wouldn't they, right? And obviously it's Tom Hanks. He's not going to be a.
Yeah.
He's going to be a hero, right? I think it sounds great. Yeah. Now, so you've been working on that how long?
Well, from when it happened, here's the story of how a producer works. So. Mike DeLuca, when another producer contacted me and said, "Hey, are you watching this go
on
down
TV?"
On CNN? Yeah, and they're saying it's playing out like a movie.
Wow.
And I'm like, but I don't think this is going to end well. I mean, and I think that's just what everybody's general thought was.
And a bad ending would make a bad movie.
Yeah, and exactly. So
and you can't change the ending in that.
No.
Yeah.
Too many people saw it.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, it's an amazing story. And, it's got everything, but I just don't want to make that movie if this ends bad.
Right.
He's like, yeah, no, you're probably right. But so that was like on Friday. And then it was Easter Sunday when the 3 snipers took the shots and the rescue came off. And everyone was like, this is unbelievable. And so I started immediately calling, trying to contact family, contact Maersk and representatives and people to try to get set up to get to the captain when...
Interesting. So there doesn't have to be a book around this. You can...
Just a story, just the idea. If you got a beginning, middle, and end of something that's dramatic like that, then... Yeah, it's good to go.
Do you have to license it? Do you have to get permission? What kind of conversations are you having?
Well, so it started as negotiation back and forth.
We'd like to make a movie about this, right?
Yeah, but
we need your permission.
I'm not the only guy that's going and trying to do this,
sure,
right?
Yeah.
So it was a lot of back and forth just to try to get to him and meet with him. And I finally got the window. I flew to New York a couple times, met with different representatives and people that were like kind of handlers, and finally got the okay to meet with him. And so I was flying to New York, and Kevin, this is where I use Kevin Spacey to my advantage. He's like my arrow that I shoot. I'm like, I need to get to that. He was in London, and I said, hey, what are you doing? He's like, I'm nothing. I'm unpacking and doing it. I'm like, can you meet me in New York tomorrow? And we're going to get on a plane and fly to Vermont. And he's like, for
Vermont?
what? I'm like, remember that captain that I was taken hostage? He's like, yeah. I'm like, well, I'm trying to get his life rights. I want to do the film of that. I go, if I can get you to show up with me, it's definitely going to give me an edge and help me show that I'm serious about doing this and bring some credibility with it. And he agreed. Flew. We met at JFK. We got onto a smaller plane there. Flew to Vermont. Went straight to dinner with the captain. And I mean, he's recently back from that, so he had a really great demeanor and was a really humorous guy. It was like amazing that he just went through that and was as humorous as he was. And then we stayed a night. Flew back to JFK, split. I went back to L.A.
Now, does Kevin do something like that because he loves the story? He loves you. What is his? It's
if he's available to do it, and I can utilize him that way.
I understand the value of that.
Yeah.
But why does he do that?
Well, it's his
production company.
No, I understand. So it's if he can help the production company in any way,
he's willing to do it.
And it's a minimal amount of a time for him to get a project of that caliber. So we use him very sparingly.
But he has to buy into the project. He has to say, yeah, this is something we would.
Not weren't many people that weren't buying into that, though. I mean,
it's pretty obvious.
Everybody was sort of
it was like obvious.
And even with him coming with me, I still thought it was pie in the sky and a long shot to be able to get it. Yeah.
Wow.
So we're very fortunate in that.
You did. Congratulations.
And then the other, we have, there's a new book out, ESPN. Those guys have all the fun.
Oh, yeah. Great book.
So that just recently set up at Fox. I'm doing that with Mike DeLuca as well.
That's another great movie. You like to make movies based on true stories, don't you?
Yeah, it does sound like
that. Well, the Captain Phillips is not necessarily a startup story, but it's the kind of thing that where I stay at is amazing minds doing amazing things. And Captain Phillips falls into that, and everything he went through and how he's capable of both. He ended up in the situation and how he made his way through it, from MIT card counters to what they did, to the social network. And
you also your background came in documentary, so it would make sense.
Well, a little bit starting off. It wasn't intentional
by chance.
But it's just that's something I'm just attracted to and passionate about. So again, this sort of story of ESPN is amazing.
Couldn't be better.
Petrons in the chat room points out Fox got the right to the ESPN story. How does that work?
I set it up at Fox
instead of ABC. Would you think Disney would want the right since it's ESPN?
Well, we took it to everybody. And different.
Isn't that funny?
It's everyone. Well, I have the way it works. I have a first look deal with Sony now. I do a majority of my projects through Sony. If they pass on a project or they decide it's not for them, then I'm free to take it around to the rest of the town. And so once they had let it go, I then took it to the rest of the town, and it went to Disney. But it's just not typical fare of a Disney.
So they were okay letting it go because they're not their area.
Yeah, but they didn't have their claws in it. And I mean, look, I did the movie about the start of Facebook. I don't really need Disney to do a movie about ESPN. There's a million ways to do it. However,
how does that? But they own the name. They own all of that. How do you get around that? Do you just they're okay licensing
that's what
that
all
stuff
attorneys are for.
Yeah. You just let them fight it out.
There's a room full of attorneys that deal with that. There's a lot of different ways. We have to be careful. We can't be disparaging, and there's a lot of ins and outs that you have to be extremely careful about, particularly with true stories. And The Social Network was like the biggest one that I think a lot of entertainment attorneys that were involved with had to deal with. But
really,
yeah, because we had to be very careful about how a lot of that
was,
especially
active court cases.
Because Facebook also wasn't it wasn't authorized. It wasn't a Facebook
they
project.
weren't participating at all.
So
none of the real people really technically were participating.
If you're going to make a movie about a public figure like Mark Zuckerberg, you don't have to get his permission to do it, though, right? I mean,
no, but you can't. We can't. We have to be very careful about how we have to have. It has to be vetted,
lie.
and we have to have sources. No, you can't lie.
Well, I noticed
you can't do that Leo Laporte story, and it's like something really horrible.
I can't do that.
No, unless it's true.
We'll figure that out. Get the attorneys on it.
It could be true.
But I noticed in Moneyball, the assistant general manager to Billy Beane, Paul DePodesta, was not.
He was a composite character.
He was a composite character, and I heard, I don't know if this is true, that he was originally okay with it, but then he withdrew his agreement, and that's why they changed it.
I'm not actually. I was with the director of that last night, and Mike DeLuca was the director of that as well. I was at dinner with them last night, and so I've heard some of the stories in and out of that. But it seemed from the conversation with them that they had a pretty easy time making all that happen.
Yeah, it seemed like everybody was, because the A's cooperated, let them shoot at the Coliseum and everything. It can't hurt them. But.
And they shot at all the stadiums they needed, and they got a lot. It helps though when you have somebody like Brad Pitt involved and start to use that celebrity factor.
Well, Billy Beane had said early when Moneyball first came out, they said, "Well, when the movie's made, who do you want playing?" He's like Brad Pitt. So when it became,
but
Brad
he was
Pitt,
joking, of course.
Yeah, no, he's like, think Pie in the Sky.
Yeah.
And the same thing happened with Captain Phillips when they were like, "Well, who do you think that you would have to play the captain?" And we went Pie in the Sky and went, Tom Hanks or George Clooney or thinking that it'll be somebody else. And then they're like, well, what about as far as director? And we're like, we went down the usual list and of again Pie in the Sky, and Paul Greengrass was on the list, and actually two of the others that were on the list, I won't mention them, but are very big name directors, were vying for it as well. And it came down to these three, and we're like, this is high class problems.
No, that's really great. That's neat. And it's because it's such a story, such an obviously great story. You can't go wrong with it.
Well, you can always go wrong.
How do movies? Movies do go wrong all the time.
A lot of it is because of the decision by committee. The Social Network could have easily gone wrong if we didn't have that force of Fincher and Rudin and Sorkin, and they're really driving it through. It just can get caught up into the development hell, as they refer to it, and get watered down and taken a lot of different ways. Oh, one thing I meant to go back to, the ways that I got that pushed through, both obviously with Fincher and them, but a lot of meetings I would have at Sony, I'd always mention, this could be the next MySpace. We got to get on this, because if this goes away, it's all for naught.
That moves them along, doesn't it?
Yeah, but
technology's great for that, because you never know what's going to happen in a year.
Right.
And
it definitely played a part of that. And when we started development, I think Facebook was 150 million or 200 million.
It was an up and comer at that time.
Really?
No one knew if it was still going. It could have easily gone away with Friendster or MySpace, in everybody's mind and thinking. So it's when our poster came out, you don't get the 300 million. We were like, really? Is it 300 million already? It's like, and what is
now
it?
It's 800 million.
Yeah.
Wow.
800 million. Well, I watched it again on demand, and it was really fun to watch again. Once I got over.
Were you as critical about it at that time?
No. Then I really could just enjoy it. But it's it's always the case that if it's about something you're really involved in and care about, you're never gonna like it. You're never gonna feel like it's doing it justice, right?
I'm things I know about, like when I watch Entourage.
Yeah, you must think that's the stupidest show, because that's not how people really live in Hollywood, isn't it?
It's part farce and part very, very true. Some of the things that you would probably think are farce are more
true.
realistic than you would think. The things that you think are realistic are just kind of...
But is there really an Ari Gold type... are those agents really like that?
Well, he's based on R. Emanuel from WME.
Rahm Emanuel's brother.
Yes, yeah. And,
but he's really like that.
There's agents that are worse. Actually, Jeremy Piven was, when I was going through the security coming in up here yesterday, he was on the phone going through security and holding up the line. I actually tweeted, hey, at Jeremy Piven, you're not Ari Gold in real life. Get off the phone. You're holding up the line. But yeah, I think he thinks he actually is Ari Gold. But there's a lot of agents and managers and attorneys that definitely have that demeanor.
So you watch Entourage. Okay, I'm here now. Hear about this now. So you watch Entourage and you just kind of say,
No, I enjoy it. And
it's a great show.
There's a lot of things that I actually relate to, and it's just like, wait, was that based off of me, or was that based off of that guy, or is that based off of this guy?
I bet there's a lot of people in Hollywood.
There's a lot of things that I've been in different, because I started as Kevin's assistant, so I am the Eric of Entourage.
So that's interesting. You're Turtle. No, Eric.
No, Eric. E. Yeah. And
you could be Turtle.
And I have a turtle, and there was a turtle in Entourage, and we have the Kevin Dillon character. And I know all these types of guys in our circles.
Yeah.
And so there's times, in different episodes where it's like, I've lived that. I've been there.
I watched the Gary Shandling show, or used to, and there was a lot of things where you go, oh yeah, I know that guy. I know that feeling. I know that situation. For sure. But it's broad. It's it's comedy. It's not supposed to be. Yeah. Reality.
Characterizations.
We love Hollywood, though, don't we? It must be interesting to work in a field that people have this kind of passion,
strong emotions.
Yeah. Well, it's a love-hate relationship for me, and as I was telling you earlier, what you're doing here is, and I've said it before and talked to a lot of people about it, and I'll say it here now, is Silicon Valley needs to take over Hollywood, because Hollywood is still stuck in the old mentality, and they're slowly adapting because they're being forced to.
Right.
They have to. But Silicon Valley creates everything that Hollywood is using now, and they could totally remove away from that if they started creating the content.
Well, think about Pixar. That's an example, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And can you imagine if Steve Jobs was still involved with Pixar and still involved in the way that, I mean, obviously he was involved, but involved in a way that he was initially before he went back to Apple, but had the two of them, so he had the content, and then he had the means of distribution and owned all of that and controlled all of that. Then it starts to reverse and flip the table as far as Hollywood. This industry is not dependent on Hollywood as far as having content for their distribution channels and the technology that they create.
Well, and you're working on one of the interesting intersections of those businesses with House of Cards, which it was acquired by Netflix. So it's going to air on Netflix streaming first.
Yeah.
Did you know that when you started?
Okay, tell us what House of Cards is. I don't know about
House of Cards is a remake of a British, a very popular British BBC show. It takes place in the House of Parliament. We're going to reset it to Washington here.
It'll be in Congress? Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Kevin Spacey starring.
Oh, boy.
David Fincher's directing the pilot episode and executive producing.
Oh, I can't wait to see this. But Netflix is producing it.
They acquired it.
They acquired it. So it's sort of like a negative pickup where. So we did the typical thing where we went around to all the studios with this project. We had quite a few people that were very interested in the project, obviously because of the caliber of talent that was involved and the success of the show that it was based on. And we thought it was going to end up at one studio, one of the traditional networks, and went into the weekend and thinking Monday the announcement was going to be with this other network, and we got a call. I was actually at Kevin's place, and he's like, I just got a call from Fincher. We need to have a talk.
Oh.
And basically, like, something interesting has come up. Netflix, who no one even paid attention to the meeting. I didn't even know there was a meeting for it.
They didn't even go.
They were going to do us, and they basically made us an offer that was
better than the network.
Oh, much better.
Now, do you base that purely on finance, or do you base that on carriage? What? I mean, you
everything.
must be.
So creative, so the amount of control that we have. Yeah, and then just what the overall deal is on the business side of things made a lot of sense. And they were basically giving us what we wanted and what we needed to really make this show the way we wanted to make it. So it's going to be very interesting to see, because that's, if you look at things like HBO and other like AMC and things like that, they started with movies.
Right.
And what did Netflix start with? And then what did AMC and HBO and Showtime and others do? They started going into original content. That's what Netflix is now doing, except they just have a different way of distributing it. Right. It goes back now to what I was saying before.
Right.
Silicon Valley taking over Hollywood. So eventually your TV is going, it already has the chiclets and everything that goes on to get Netflix and Vudu and your next new networks are, maybe not these, but it's going to be there's going to be Twit, it's going to be iTunes, it's going to be Amazon streaming, it's going to be Vudu, Facebook. All of those are going to be your next new networks, and you're going to be able to cut out the middleman.
Right.
And this might be a few years down the road, but I think it's going to be sooner than a lot of people think. And where you go and you're like, I'll pay $8 for that, and I'll pay $10, all this a la carte. And then you're paying for what you want, as opposed to you pay a set fee and you get 80 channels you never watch. And it works well for, with HBO, it's different because it's owned by Time Warner and it's a conglomerate, but it's assumed for a second that Time Warner wasn't a part of that, and it was like a direct, its own independent, like Netflix is. That money goes direct to them. So it goes direct to Netflix, as opposed to going through a third party that's then taking a piece off. So it becomes cheaper for the consumer, and it becomes more financially beneficial to the distributor and the content provider. Now, if you go back to Silicon Valley, they're very good at taking the best developers and taking the best people for, be it for Google or whatever company it is. Now, if they really want the content, start doing the same thing with Hollywood. Take me, take the writers, do what Netflix did. You got David Fincher, you got Kevin Spacey, you got me, you got other great producer, and you got it all. And then you put the money, and relative speaking, it's not costing much to do it. Then you start selling back to the people you used to be buying from.
Right.
It's just that the industry itself is resisting it because there's so many people who are been taking that slice out of the middle but don't want to give up that control. Well, they're taking a slice out of the middle,
and they also don't understand technology, and they don't understand how. I mean, this is one reason. How many producers like me have you had in the studio?
You're the first.
Right, because they don't understand this is where it's going.
Yeah.
And maybe not in the studio scenario. This is more television, not necessarily for film, but the distribution model is going this way, and they need to take notice, because what happened to the record industry, the movie industry has just been a little bit more lucky that they haven't gotten destroyed.
It's only because the file sizes are so big.
Exactly.
To be honest.
But the more and more the bandwidth opens up,
it's not going to make a difference. But they know that, don't they know that?
But you got to understand, it's going to be somebody else's problem.
Right.
It's going to be somebody else's problem. They're only in that job for a few more years, and they get their golden parachute, and they're out, and it's somebody else's problem.
So funny.
I don't have to understand it.
Corey Doctorow told me that with the record company. I said, don't the record people know this? They said, it's just not on my watch.
Yeah.
If I can just hold on for a few more years, it'll be the next guy's problem.
And the fact
that's
that
what's happening.
Small file size and the fact that you want to replay a song more often than once is what killed it. Streaming has saved video because I only want to watch it once anyway. So as long as I can get it streamed.
How does it work with Netflix? So you'll deliver them just as you would a network, a certain number of episodes, and then what? They put it on their streaming?
I'm not exactly sure what their plan is, but yeah, they're going to stream it out.
Will they charge? Maybe that'll be a premium thing that they'll do.
It's part of the $7.99.
So their stock, it's getting
I know
slammed right now, and who knows what's going to happen with it. I think it's going to be a great buy soon, because
I think they're smart.
I don't think a lot of people realize the quality of show they bought. A lot of people hear, oh, Netflix bought a show called House of Cards. I don't know anything about it. Yeah.
When was the last time Kevin Spacey did television, and when the last time David Fincher did television?
Exactly. Fincher and Spacey. So whose decision was it to go with Netflix?
Well, so we have this phone call, and Fincher he seemed very eager to do this, and Kevin lives in London, so he didn't know what the hell Netflix was. And because they don't have it there, and so he's like, "What Netflix?"
It's like Love Film, Kevin.
so I told him I'm on a phone across the room.
You're making a deal with who?
So he's like, "Wait, what?"
Chiclets? Who?
And so I'm on the phone listening to the thing, and I'm like. And obviously, I get it.
Were you excited in it? I mean, did this?
I was literally going, "You are doing this." I'm like yelling at across the room, "You are doing this. You are doing this." And then as we started to explain to him more on the phone, he was super excited about it.
Kevin's pretty techie. I mean, he loves this stuff
to a certain degree. Yeah, but he's still kind of a Luddite, like a lot of actors like that. We went to a meeting at Twitter this morning, and it was like a lot of things that second nature to guys like us. It's still like, what? Huh? I mean, he tweets, and he's very active on Twitter, but some of those things that we were talking about there today didn't,
Interesting. Yeah.
Kind of
not submerged in it.
But that's why people like you, this is an opportunity for a young guy, because they're looking to your generation to say, what's going on?
Well, smart people in my business are, and Kevin, that's one thing. He's very business savvy and very smart about this business. So he does put a lot of credit into me and trust into me to drive the country, to drive.
Like
Are you running for president too? What's your tax plan?
So I'm going to 888.
888. You get one better. One better.
It's either 4 9s or 3 8s. You gotta go one way or another.
And people that are smart, like I've been meeting with a lot of people, a lot of like bigger names will come and meet with me because they understand that I kind of get where or at least I think I get where the business is going, but it's a big battle, and I think it's a great opportunity right now for some smart people from this industry to come into my industry.
I think Google's getting that. I think Netflix is getting that.
Well, Google, what they're doing with YouTube is interesting, but what I think that they've done wrong, and just to criticize them a little bit here, is they've brought old school media in to run that, and that's where the tech companies keep making.
Yahoo did that. They brought Terry Semel
in.
Right.
And too high of positions. What you need to do is just you set it up and say, this is what we're doing. Bring us the content.
It's the creators that you really want, not the businessmen. You want the creators.
You need from me down.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So when will it be on Netflix? I mean,
well, we don't start shooting until probably April or of next year.
And do they do the same thing that a network do? They buy 13 or whatever, 22 episodes?
Yeah, they bought the whole. Well, a network normally doesn't do that. It's another thing. So a network will usually only go to pilots.
Right.
And then based.
Oh, so you haven't done a pilot yet?
No, and so they'll buy normally on a pilot, and then they'll then decide after that this is not that deal. So that's another big reason, and it's smart too because now we get all the scripts written, and if we're shooting in this location for this scene,
you
and
can
then
build
the scene in episode 6. We need this again.
Consistency
rather than coming back, we can just go ahead and grab it. So it becomes very economical.
Is it a 13 episode arc?
I don't know because again, it doesn't have to fall within the traditional standards. So I don't know how we're going to deliver.
Well, yeah, I mean,
but it's going to be. It's going to be.
Does it debut a new episode every Friday, or how does this work?
I don't know. I'm anxious as you to find out how that's all going to go down.
Because I mean, some of those things are old school in the sense that you don't need to parcel it out every week.
Yeah.
You don't need. I mean, it's like us not having the shows be exactly 22 or 44 minutes.
Yeah.
And sometimes you get in these mindsets because that's how it's done. But
if they want to be able to do like what I was saying, sell back or have it go other places, then you have to at least the number and the length.
Right.
But yeah,
so they are going to make you do whatever 60 minutes or 44 minutes or whatever the
we'll have to fall in and keep
to do all that stuff.
I'm assuming again it's a lot that we're.
You just know that you got a season. Does that?
Two.
Two seasons. You got 2 seasons. Yeah. Okay.
Well, it would be equivalent.
They had to be aggressive, right? Because they're bidding against big networks, and they've got to give you a reason to go for this.
Yeah.
Creative control. Everybody wants that. The right price, and they bought a lot of episodes.
I just feel bad for the fifth production that comes in, and they start getting like
they're gonna get savvy.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
Are you the first? Is this the first?
Yeah. And I think they bought 2 more shows since, but we were the first one.
How interesting. I guess Friday Night Lights was the beginning of this, right? When it was rejected by a network and a cable company picked it up. Is that? I mean, we're starting to see.
It started on a network, but then it went off onto a was
it Showtime or who was it?
I forgot who it went to, but it started at a network.
This is fresh, original stuff.
Yeah.
Wow, that's exciting.
Yeah, no, it's going to be. I think it's going to be a game changer in a lot of ways, and is a good indication of where the business goes. And I think there's a lot of weight on this, on the success of it, because if it doesn't be successful, and a lot of people want to see us fail, and particularly with Netflix taking this big
DirecTV.
Everybody else who didn't
not Showtime.
Yes, that's right.
Everybody else who didn't buy it.
Well, but they're also, but a lot of the press that's coming out about Netflix, and they're going on about this whole Quickster thing and all of that. And my whole thing is like, look, you get charges on your bill on your cell phone bill that you probably don't even realize, but there's no big articles and stories, and everyone's coming out about it. But if you look and you play back to who controls those media outlets, and it comes down to a lot of the conglomerates.
Right. Although a lot of people in our chat room were just enraged. They didn't need anybody to tell them.
Right, but everyone gets enraged when there's change. When there's changes to Facebook or anything, people get enraged. But fuel just kept getting added to that fire and getting added to that fire. And look, I might be a conspiracy theorist, but trace it back to where the money's coming from and who the direct competitors.
I've said that all along. Well, this is great. I mean, actually, I'm glad you're here. That's good timing. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, I came for a tour and I ended up on a show.
Yeah.
So tell us, one of the reasons that Dana wanted to see this is because you're doing some stuff too, right?
Yeah, we're doing a little podcast. Again, I do it more just to kind of learn, and it's more of like an education for me, just to kind of stay up on the technology. And we used to do a podcast that we did every week, and we did about 100 episodes of them. And I said a lot of stuff that I probably shouldn't have said. I ended up having to take them all down for us.
You know, really? That happens on podcasts. Yeah. Believe me.
So I deleted them all. It was probably
don't look for them.
Yeah, that's the thing. Once it's out there, it's out there.
My biggest worry was, I was going into the Oscar season last year, and I'm like, God, I said a lot of crap that somebody's going to get this, take some little clips and put together.
That's the problem with podcasts is they feel like nobody's listening, but they live forever.
Oh yeah, no, and it's out there. And it's like, as we say in the movie, it's written in ink, not in pencil. Yes, and even more so with video. So yeah, we do, and we're doing a variety of shows. I haven't done one yet, but. Do you have a studio at Trigger Street? It's a little room about the size of this. We have camera stands similar to. It's funny because when I saw your camera,
we built the same stanchions. Yeah,
literally, and I thought I was the genius that came up with that.
Great minds. That's all I can say.
Convergent evolution.
And we stream out. We do it live, and we use. We don't have the setup obviously that you have. With
using Wirecast.
Using Wirecaster.
Yeah.
And it's a Trigla TV, Trigla.tv, TRIGGLA. It's we'll see where it goes, and if anything, right now it's a learning experience for us, and just to kind of stay up on the technology.
And what do you talk about on the show?
Well, the one that I used to do was all the same stuff about Hollywood, the business,
how it gets made,
and we talk more about the headlines and things that were happening in the business, and model a lot after your original Twit, but with the tech industry.
Twit for Hollywood.
Within Hollywood. I should just Skype into here and do a Hollywood show.
I would love that. What were you thinking? Just call me next time, Dana.
Let's do it.
You can come up here anytime you want.
Well, I'll have you on Frame Rate any Tuesday you want to be on. Yeah, absolutely.
I'll do it I'll do it from set.
All right.
That'd be fun.
Mike DeLuca and I used to shoot the podcast from set of 21. A lot of people didn't realize it, but we were literally just on the other side of the curtain.
You know, you should get, when they start doing House of Cards, you should get on Frame Rate. It'd be really fun to talk about that. I know you have. It'd be really great to...
I'll do it.
All right.
I'm totally down.
I just didn't realize Dana was involved with this, so it's good timing. I mean, that's really interesting. You're really on the forefront.
I try to be. I mean, that's again going back to what a producer does, and it's you have to kind of be out in front of things, because if you're reacting to it, it
takes too long. Takes too long. You can't. You got to be way ahead. Skate where the puck is going.
That's right.
Dana Brunetti is at triggerstreet.com. Or the podcast. Oh, you said TrigLA.tv for the podcast.
Trig.LA. The site's being redone. Don't go there yet.
Okay.
There they have it up already. Never mind.
Too late.
That's the internet for you.
It's going to be. The site's going to be redone in a couple of weeks. It's maybe you can give me some web guys that can amp it up a little bit.
Right. We don't even have our own web guys. We outsource everything.
You can get me on Twitter. Follow that, and I'll.
Okay, at Dana Brunetti.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. So I'm so glad you were here. We were just walking
around.
Very
fortuitous. And it's almost like we set this up.
I said, Dana, would you like to be on the show? And he said yes. And I'm grateful to you. Thanks to Andy too, who had to sit around and watch. And next time you're in town, come back and see us again. We'd love to see you.
Definitely.
Yeah. Thank you, Dana. Thank you all for being here. As always, we love doing this show. Tom and I get to talk to some of the most interesting people in all kinds of businesses.
Unfortunately, it just ended up with me today.
We got stuck with Dana.
No, that's not true.
No, in fact, this is exciting. I want to hear, as House of Cards goes along and that model, I'd love to hear more about that and how that's working. That's really interesting.
You're going to hear a lot about it. It's going to be in the press.
Breakthrough. That's a breakthrough.
It's got a magnifying lens on it, for sure.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, absolutely.
And a target.
Yeah, right. On your back.
Right
on the, he said we should do this. What were you thinking? You probably were watching with some interest as the Netflix thing happened, and it's
it's definitely. I mean, look, our deal is done. Everyone is like, "Well, does that affect your deal?" And it's like, no, the deal's done.
I believe in Reed Hastings, and I've been watching this, and I know he's gotten a lot of heat for it. I just think he's such a smart guy, and he knows what he's doing.
And Ted is as well.
Ted too.
Extremely...
And they're dealing with forces, tidal forces. And we're going to see this with a lot of companies where you've got these big stakeholders like Comcast and Hollywood, and
they don't want it to happen.
They don't want it to happen, and that's good. They're going to be a little bit at the mercy of that.
But if you look, it's guys like that change the industry and make things for the better.
I agree.
You start from Steve Jobs.
Yep.
I mean, most recently that we lost. That you go people like that. He was going up against extreme forces. But if he wasn't doing what he was doing and making waves, we wouldn't have the iPad, we wouldn't have the iPhone, we wouldn't have a lot of the design that we have in the computers that we use. So it's great minds like that we need.
I agree.
And we need to embrace more than try to stop.
People get mad at me because I defend Ted and Reed and Netflix, and I really believe in them. And they say, well, they doubled the... No, you got to understand this is a complicated
Can I talk on that
thing.
for a second, though?
Yeah, sure.
So they didn't double. If you just get the streaming, it's
$8.
$8.
I keep saying that.
It's like one of the best deals out there. But the media is drumming that up and throwing fuel on the fire.
Because for certain people who were still into DVDs and streaming, it doubled their rate.
Right. And
it's still cheap.
I'm so pissed that they backed down off of that and they went, because that's where it's going. DVDs are dead.
Right.
They're going the way of VHS.
Right.
To my mind, they've already gone the way of VHS.
I agree.
Streaming is where it's at.
Reed had the right instinct. I don't know if it was his board or what, but somebody held him back and said, oh, you can't do this Quickster thing. And that was a mistake.
But it was a great, just splinter off.
I think he probably tried. I think he probably wanted to sell it. Couldn't find a buyer.
And I think he figured out he can set it up where
some idiot. I'm sorry.
It's already
what's Rupert doing?
But the thing is, it's already a different business unit. All he backed off on was the rebranding.
Right.
Yeah.
So
well, that might not be
would have made it
idea.
easier to sell, but he can still slice.
Oh yeah,
that
no. Well, that's what I think will ultimately
Still has
happen.
to be.
It's gonna happen.
There's no future.
It's just gone.
There's no future. I agree. And I
luckily,
love
the Postal Service has the iCards now to kind of keep them in business.
They're in deep trouble.
They'll eventually lose Netflix.
The future is not on their side.
Yeah.
We do this show every Wednesday when we can get a great guest like Dana at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. That would be, let's see, 2200 UTC at twit.tv. But you know, we've got great shows in the can. We record every one of them. You can watch audio, listen to video, watch video, listen to audio. It's all at twit.tv. Look for Triangulation. Tom Merritt will be back tomorrow, TNT, 2:30. See, I got on time today. I'm going to get you.
Yeah.
I'm going to get on time from now on.
Brilliant.
We're going to get to your show right on time. If you want your daily dose of tech news, 2:30 Pacific, 5:30 Eastern for TNT. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on Triangulation.